Everyone in Fairview knows the story. Pretty and popular high school senior Andy Bell was murdered by her boyfriend Sal Singh, who then killed himself. With a hook like that, how could I not pick up this book? I love a good murder mystery as much as the next girl. And A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson follows soon-to-be senior in high school Pip as she embarks on her capstone project to investigate the murder, following her hunch that Sal is innocent. And if I'm honest, I couldn't put this book down. I started reading it at 10 a.m. and I think I finished around 7:30 that night. It was insanely good and very easy to just get completely lost in the world of the characters and everything that they were doing, and the whole just idea of being a senior in high school and solving a murder, and that too, not even a cold case, a murder that has been solved and put away, and the rest of the town is completely okay with how it turned out, but you're still gonna just follow this hunch and crack it open. That is insane. Books, TV, music, and movies. All things that make a big impact on everyone. I'm constantly gushing about my latest read to anyone who will listen, so I figured I'd turn my rambling into something semi-coherent that people might actually listen to. That means no tuning out halfway through. I'm Maya Ghosh, and this is my take. Now, for everyone who hasn't already read the book, the non-spoiled section ends here. But I'm sure a lot of you don't care for spoilers, so listen in at your own risk. But be warned, character relationships in this book, as it is a murder mystery in a small town, are kinda whack, so if you're completely confused, that one's on you. I think a lot of my English teachers will not be very happy with me if I'm doing a podcast about books and I don't take a second to stop and talk about the writing and the prose and all of that good stuff that we love about English class. So in this book, I wanted to focus in on the fact that the writing is so completely simple. There were never any words that I had to look up. There was nothing that was a symbol for something else that I had to, sit and decompress and analyze. There was never, a metaphor that confused the heck out of me. Like, this book isn't Beloved. I understood it all completely first read. But that kind of is a juxtaposition with the story in itself, because the story is so complex with all of the characters and their interconnecting stories, and this person's connected to this person through this, but to that person through that, but that person's connected to the first person through something completely different. That stuff is also complex, that it actually makes a kind of sense that the writing is so simple, because I think if the writing was this complicated and the story was this complicated, something would get lost. But the fact that the writing is so simple allows the story to be the main focus and allows readers to really invest in the story rather than trying to invest in the story but also having to navigate the confusing part of the writing. So that is all I will say about that, because this is a podcast and not an English lesson, and I'm not bound to analyze every single symbol or metaphor or, diction choice that's in the book. I mean, it's 390 pages. That is a lot of diction choices. So yeah, I will jump right into the ending, because, the ending is what we're all here for. It is a murder mystery. Who done it? That's the whole point. And I was kind of disappointed by the ending. Yeah, it wasn't the best. It was interesting. Yeah, so with the ending, there was kind of a dual villain situation. First villain being Becca Bell. Yes, Andy Bell, Becca Bell, her little sister. And Becca as a villain made sense to me. She struggled with depression and self-harm and felt neglected by her family, and her sister were both emotionally abused by their father. So all of that put together, the circumstances in which she became a villain made sense. Andy came home, she was concussed and puked, and all Becca really wanted to tell her about was something that had happened to her, and Andy was refusing to listen because she was puking and not caring and being a stupid teenager. And so Becca, not thinking, or thinking, let her choke and die in her own vomit. And I mean, to any of my friends out there, I promise I will never let you choke and die in your own vomit. I swear, I got you. I'll keep you safe. I'm not a murderer. Promise. Even though I'm saying that this murder makes sense. Anyways, she struggled. And as my psych teacher likes to tell me, your prefrontal cortex and prefrontal lobe that helps you make rational decisions is not fully developed as a teen. And to put on top of that, she had mental health issues. So her lapse in judgment in saving her sister's life, I see it. I see it as a logical thing, and I see the need to dump the body and all that kind of stuff that runs through a teenager's head when you do something you're not supposed to do, whether it be, sneak out of the house or sneak somebody over, and, it is kind of running through your mind like, oh shit, what if I get caught? What am I going to do? What am I going to tell my parents? How do I hide this? So the fact that she dumps the body, I mean, yeah, sure. It happens. Makes sense. Whatever. But the second villain was Mr. Ward, who I never liked as a villain, if I'm being honest. I was very mad that he was a villain because I loved Pip's relationship with the Ward family, with Kara being her best friend and Naomi being like her surrogate older sister and Mr. Ward being a father figure to her. I loved that dynamic, and maybe that's just because I am very close with a family like that, and, their son is like my little brother and stuff, and I have that connection. Maybe that's what blinded me to wanting Mr. Ward to be not a villain, but he was. The way that he was a villain irked me because it was so unnecessary. I mean, first off, he had an affair with Andy, which I was like, okay, why would you do that? Like, I thought you were better than this. You have 2 teenage daughters. Like, what the frick are you doing? And second, she came over to expose him or something. Like, she came over to confront him about the affair, and he just pushed her so that she hit her head. Like, you were a teacher. I know teachers are supposed to have some amount of first aid training. Like, go after her, find her, make sure she's not concussed. Or if she is concussed, take care of her. Make up a story about how you found her running on the side of the road and she'd tripped. Like, you're an authority figure in her life. It's not that hard. You don't need to let her go home bleeding from the head, concussed. Let her die, or presume that she dies or runs off. Then take her boyfriend out into the woods, feed him sleeping pills, tie a plastic bag around his head, and then let him suffocate to death. And then takes the dried blood from the back of her head that's in his office, scrapes it off, takes tweezers and puts it back under the boyfriend's nail so that her blood is in his nails. What the hell? Who thinks of doing that? Like, that is some next level framing people shit. Like, he's a history teacher. Is he really processing that much? I mean, come on. That's what I found unbelievable. Just the level to which he was sociopathic. Like, it didn't make sense. And I understand, right? The charming sociopath, they fit in with society. They, are completely normal. No one ever suspects them. They're like Ted Bundy kind of person. But, like, really? Really? And then to see a girl who looks vaguely like her because she's skinny and has blonde hair, kidnap her, hold her hostage, and make her pretend to be Andy for 5 years. Again, what the hell? Like, the whole ending and the way it unfolded seemed very Pretty Little Liars-esque. I mean, it had the classic Pretty Little Liars threatening text. It had a dead pet, which I don't know if I'll ever forgive Holly Jackson for killing Barney, because Barney did nothing wrong. He was a extremely loyal dog. I loved him and he deserved so much better. That was not okay. As somebody who has a dog, I was not okay with the dog being murdered. And, complete with forcing a girl to pretend to be somebody she's not in captivity because you're trying to play out some fantasy. Like, there was so much in that ending that, like, I could not rationalize as being real, which I guess it doesn't have to be real, it's fiction, and that's probably why I loved it, because it was so insane that I kept reading and I got lost in the fact that, like, is this really happening? This can only happen in books kind of scenario. But as crazy and whack and Pretty Little Liars-esque as the ending is, I did love the book. I did appreciate it. It was fun. As much as I need to accept and let go that Mr. Ward, is a villain, is crazy, is whack, not right in the head. It was really good. I appreciate the craziness of the ending. Now, moving on from the ending, I did want to touch on the Pip and Ravi love story that unfolds in the thing. I will be the first to tell you I am a diehard romantic. I love it. I don't even know. My friends make fun of me all the time for the stupid romance novels that I read, but I'm the first person to be like, I want them to be together. This would be great. I love them. I ship it, right? But with Ravi and Pip, I was a little hesitant just because he's the younger brother of the supposed killer that you're investigating. Like, it seemed like a conflict of interest, even though that's not really applied to romance. I don't know. It just seemed like a conflict of interest to fall in love with him. But the more they ran around, chasing drug dealers and walking miles and miles together, and him, at the end where he came to her rescue, and I mean, for once he didn't do the stupid thing and believe her when she said that she was going to, like, give up on the case, and when he showed back up the next day, I was like, okay, yes, you are a good one, you are using your brain and being logical for once. Which, never happens in romance novels because everybody's whacking those. But the subtlety of their romance was very great too. I loved it. It was very nice for it to never be something that overtook Pip's mind. It was never, oh, am I getting too close to Ravi? Oh, is this something I should be doing? Oh, is it... Their sole directive was always the murder, and the romance was just a nice byproduct, and I kind of loved that. Like, when I looked at the epilogue and it was like he put his forehead on my forehead and then he leaned in and kissed me, I was like, okay, yeah, I needed that. I loved that. I'm okay with that. And I'm okay that I know that they're dating, but I don't need to read any of their fluff dating life. Like, I'm good with the book being solely about the murder with a romantic byproduct. A side of romance, if you will. The one thing I was not happy about Ravi with was the stupid ultimatum about, oh, I'm giving you this much time. I think it was like a couple weeks, and then I'm telling people no matter what. And I'm like, you are the one person who knows what it's like to have your family blown up by this thing, right? Your brother was eventually wrongfully convicted of, or not convicted, but you know what I mean, like, he was convicted in the court of public opinion, for murder. Your family suffered the backlash of that, and you're still willing to put reclaiming your brother's name after 5 years. You can't wait like 2 more months to save another family from being completely burned to smithereens. I mean, he knew, right? Like, well, he didn't know, but in the end, Mr. Ward was implicated in it, and so had he outed Naomi and the drunk driving thing, which was not Naomi's fault, but also Naomi's fault, but we're not getting into that. That's not important. I mean, had he outed Naomi, Kara would have been left with no one, having already lost her mom and then losing her dad, and would have lost her sister in the process. So that was not cool, but in the end, he comes around. So we can forgive him because he's cute, so it's fine. tiny other little things that I loved about the book. Pip's overachieverness. I have been told I can be overachieving or extra when it comes to school, but I will never reach Pip's level. I mean, girl starts her senior project this summer before you're even really supposed to start it, I think. I don't know how theirs works, but like senior project, one would think you do it senior year, not, June before your senior year. And just the amount of depth that it requires to solve a murder, like, come on. I did my junior project on forensic psychology, and the furthest or most extra thing I did was make my mom drive me 3 hours away to watch a forensic psychologist testify in court. Like, and that too was a day trip. I mean, Pip is insane. I love it. And I love that we're reading about an overachiever who's insane, but it's not the typical, like, overachiever nerd falls for, like, failing bad boy trope. But I just felt like, as somebody who's been labeled extra, I needed to touch on the fact that Pip's extraness is awe-inspiring, and I love it. Also, Kara just being amazing with Pip, like, kind of blowing up her life. I mean, once Pip starts investigating it, it comes out that her sister was involved in a drunk driving thing, and her dad had an affair with a teenager student of his, and then kidnapped somebody after murdering another person. Like, if any of my friends come to find out any knowledge about my family being involved in murders or kidnappings or drug deals or money laundering or anything like that, you can happily keep the information to yourself. It's okay. I don't need to know. I will live my blissfully ignorant life. But just the way Kara handles that and is still able to be friends with Pip at the end is kind of amazing, and I love that. Yeah, I mean, in the end, the book is not one of, not literary merit, but like, it's not showing up on any of those lists, like, read to prepare for the AP Lit exam, or read for independent reading, right? Because prose-wise, it's not complex. I said that. But just the experience of it, the way that it's written so that you can sit down for, a 7-hour stretch and read it straight through. And it's written so that the main focus is the characters in the story and not the characters in the story and the prose, right? It doesn't need to go down in history of being an amazing book. Nobody needs to remember it for all time. It's just a good book to sit with, but it's also not, cliched and stupid and something I would get made fun of by my friends for reading, right? Like, it's interesting without being complex, but it's complex at the same time. I may not remember every single detail about Pip's life and Naomi and Mr. Ward and Becca and Andy Bell. Like, I'm recording this a couple weeks out from reading it, and I still don't, remember every detail. But getting to just completely emotionally invest in a book for a day, and that be my day, and that be my memory of that day. And I think that is something I will remember for a long time, if not the rest of my life. Experiences like that. So, yeah, I have been Maya Ghosh. This has been my take on A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. Thanks for listening. Okay, before y'all leave, I do have to say, I know this is a very low-tech operation. It is me in my room with my white Apple headphones and GarageBand audio tracks. But one big help and big shout out I have to give is to my friend Paris, who is amazing at figuring technical stuff out and did all of the music that you're hearing in this episode and in future episodes. It's amazing and I love her for it. So yeah, I have to give a huge shout out to her for helping me in developing the perfect theme music. Thank you, Paris.